Chapter 5. The Mirror Forge. We have been uncontested masters of our domain for too long. 26th December 2033, 1320. Folded Realm. Signature F3561712. Physical location. Phobos, near Fort Plank. I tried to step through first as we touched the glowing wireframe. The captain's performance lying to Houston had not increased my confidence in her leading anything. Sometimes, the biggest risk was not taking on the dangerous task yourself, it's entrusting it to the wrong person. I'd tried to be first in, but I hadn't succeeded. The D4 encompassed us all at the same time. The engineer, I guess she's a shield mage now, strode 2 steps behind me, and the captain 1 step behind her. I wished I could see this character sheet the captain talked about, but it appears to only respond to requests in Latin, and I'll need practice to get the words right. I knew I'd changed, but knowing the degree would help a lot. Power flowed through my veins after feasting upon the earlier village, and I felt indestructible. But was I really? Knowledge. Lacking it was disempowering. Heat licks my visor as a new world unfolded. It wasn't scorching, but the heat was tough to ignore. There's no immediate danger, and pleasantries seemed expected, so I gave them. Clear so far. Hot in here. Reminds me of that 10-miler we ran back in Dallas. Yeah, not our smartest moment, the engineer says. 105 degrees, wasn't it? Our artillery battery gets our words in. Yeah, we should have cancelled that one. But you know, everything has got to be a spectacle. The world surrounding us was a brown labyrinth of fired bricks. Mostly, they were laid in narrow corridors with barely space for 2 to pass, but we had appeared in a high chamber where 9 paths intersected. The craftsmanship was exquisite. There was no dust, no rubble, and no signs of age. This place was maintained by something as obsessed with cleanliness as the captain is with Hohmann transfers and orbital equations. Gravity was mercifully normal, maybe even a touch higher than on Earth. The devoured First Realm had some gravity too, but it wasn't like I could go back there for a taste of normality. "Do you hear that?" the captain asked. I strained my ears and heard unsettling rustling, almost a whisper. "Something's here, comms clear and eyes sharp." We ceased all chatter and looked around, and it's the engineer that saw it first. Her eyes are incredible. 1 o'clock, flying high, up 60. I looked slightly right and angle way up, and barely caught a glimpse of 2 red eyes attached to a hazy, translucent form that was unleashing a wail as the captain's firearm discharged twice. Turns out that role-playing games had it wrong. You can simply pump a ghost full of lead. I thought my punches were powerful, but the captain's firepower eclipsed them. She was incredible. A crystalline web of ice shards formed around the spectral presence before eyeballs, ectoplasm, and glacial cage simply exploded. The engineer manifested a shield above the 3 of us, and 4 stray icicles impaled themselves upon it next to my face. "I should only have shot once," the captain cursed. "Can't reload this the usual way, but it reloads itself slowly. 1 bullet back every 10 seconds if I don't fire." I filed that information away. She was the ultimate artillery unit, fragile and devastating. But in any real conflict, spies are the best counter to artillery. Even if we can't turn their fire around, just knowing where they are pointing or their limitations undermines their danger greatly. I hope never to come to blows with the captain, but a girl has to keep her options open. The first crisis avoided, we scoured the rest of the room. Nothing gave us a reason to favour one of the 9 paths over another, and each seemed to travel for quite some distance before turning. Most of them bent right and a couple to the left. Asked the others, "Anything pushing you to choose any of these specific paths?" "Nothing obvious," the captain said. "Megan?" The shield mage didn't favour any of the different routes either, but she proposed a different plan. "This room's the odd one out, nonagonal and extremely tall. What's hiding up at the top?" My wings unfurled, and the others followed suit. We soared upwards to scout, but it was a dead end. Whatever secrets this folded realm had were tethered to the ground, and not to the skies. I shared this revelation, and they both nodded. "Anyone feeling lucky?" the engineer asked. Neither myself nor the captain raised our hands. To break the silence, the engineer continued, "Alright, let's try this one," and pointed at one of the 9 directions. Lacking any reason to protest, I took point. The engineer marched second, and the captain brought up the rear. "Right, that's me fully reloaded," the captain said. I didn't feel that the spiritual fatigue from flying was completely gone, and once more, I wished I could see this so-called character sheet. So many rules I did not understand. So many things I don't even know exist that might keep me alive in the future. We didn't traverse far, tens of meters at most, before the pathway turned right and then split in 2. The leftmost path disappeared into a pillar of flame about 30 meters long, while the rightmost path led to an alcove where the air tasted metallic. A polished obsidian plate dominated the wall. It swallowed our helmet lights, but it was visibly reflective. The captain started to think aloud. The system called this place the Mirror Forge. We've seen the mirror, so should we check the forge next? Her next words were directed to the two of us. I say, let's check the other path first. We can always come back here if we have to. I didn't agree, but I didn't disagree enough to try and countermand her suggestion. It seemed harmless, and who knows, she could be right. We followed the other path, but 20 metres from the flames, my visor hazed completely, and a few metres past that, the heat was agony. The shield mage's shields didn't help at all. We're tough now, and we could probably run a marathon in Texas heat. We're not indestructible, and as the room temperature approached the point water boils, we gave up on the captain's plan. We regrouped at the mirror, and the captain fired off one of her minor healing prayers with slightly different words. I didn't think I was hurt badly, but I'm certainly not going to say no. It was only then that we realised just how truly bizarre this mirror was. I saw the engineer staring at it, and the weirdness dawned on the captain just a second or two before it dawned on me. It was not reflecting her, it was twisting her instead. The engineer raised her left hand, and instead of the reflection raising its right to meet hers, the reflection also raised its left. Before anyone could convince her not to, the engineer touched the mirror and her hand continued straight through. At the same time, another hand reaches out to grasp at her. It was her own hand. Okay, this is weird, the engineer exclaimed. We hear two copies of her voice coming from two different locations, the Megan standing in front of us, and another reflected and twisted in the mirror. Only one reasonable thing to do, the captain stated. Let me be the one to go through it. I can't ask either of you to. I complied enthusiastically, while the engineer complied reluctantly, but we both complied. The captain walked into the left side of the mirror and came out on the right side. She looks like the exact same woman, but we'd all seen that she had been transported somehow. Are you still you? The engineer asked. I followed up with a more precise question, something an imposter shouldn't know. What country was your second IMO in? Romania, she says, then keeps talking. The answer partially convinced me. Her needing 23 words to give it was even more convincing. The captain kept rambling. Everything is inverted in my viewpoint now. Left is right, right is left. From your perspective, you turn right to go back to the flame pillar. From a new perspective, that's on my left. I'd like to check it out. We followed the captain back to the last junction, and she walked straight up to where the fires were and continued through. Completely clear for me now. Can only assume that's what the whole Mirror Forge name means. I suggest you both go to the mirror or portal or whatever it is, so that we can continue past this obstacle. Not what I was expecting, but I followed the captain's footsteps into the twisted mirror and came out to a world reflected, the engineer 2 steps behind me. We caught up to the captain and passed through the firewall without it bothering us in the slightest. The new path continued further, and it wasn't as well maintained, nor as well made. About half a kilometre of winding pathways, we finally reached an endpoint, a room that opened up into a D12 shape. Dodecahedron, the captain would call it. At the bottom of the new room sat a medieval anvil, covered in multiple types of junk. The captain's eyes lit up as she tried to lift a simple ingot of metal from the anvil, and failed. The metal was an unadorned blue that would definitely not have caught my interest. Far too ugly for use in jewellery, and not like any industrial metals I knew. It also looked very brittle. She braced for a second attempt. Whatever this was, it had to be extraordinarily heavy. I heaved, and knew that a day ago there was no way I could have lifted this. But now I feel strong enough to bench press a car, which left me absolutely flabbergasted when it took both hands just to raise the ingot into the air. Of course, great treasures could not go unguarded. Touching the metal seems to have been forgiven, but by lifting it off the altar, I set something off. The menacing whispers from before returned, this time louder and more numerous. The ceiling was only a few metres above us, and that made us feel very secure. There was no way for anything to sneak up on us, or at least there shouldn't have been. Arg! What was that? The captain shrieked, before simply disappearing and reappearing 3 metres back and about 2 in the air. We looked to our previous location, and reaching out from the floor was a spectral arm. Great. These ghosts the captain killed earlier, they can move through walls. We'd been caught off guard, who were still military and always took training seriously. The engineer quickly threw up shields, 5 at a time, protecting multiple directions. One of her shield traps went off as a spectre reached for my foot, and another went off near the engineer herself. A third spectre lightly connected with my thigh and imparted a glancing blow that echoed into my mind. There was no blood, just a cold hook tearing courage loose, and a voice in my head shrieking at me to flee. My chest hollowed and my hand shook, but I endured. The captain fired a shot or two, but couldn't land a decisive strike. She still seemed rattled from her teleportation, and maybe her resolve had been hit too. Having learned a thing from our last folded realm, I didn't move towards an uncontrolled opponent. Instead, I aimed to land a solid hit on a ghost the shield mage had already pinned. I struck a restrained ghost, invoking the concept of esoterica, the study of the occult, and the way my will could impose itself upon the world. I only landed one punch, but it's all I needed to land. Power that has been welling up inside me surged into my fist, then into the ghost. My fist punched right through it, travelling straight into the ectoplasm as a great amount of spiritual energy ripped from my body and channeled through the foe. Unable to contain it, the ghost exploded. Slime projectiles fired throughout the room, 2 bouncing harmlessly off the captain, and 4 connecting with other ghosts. Unfortunately, there was no 5 birds or 1 stone achievement awarded. With the ghost neutralised, we turned to study the Blue Ingot in the anvil. It was the size of a standard gold bar, and I knew from certain covert dealings that those weigh 12 kilos. This thing was not 12 kilos, it felt like 300. My wrist screamed. The captain grinned from ear to ear. "That density, it's not like any element on the periodic table," she said, reverent. "They don't get much heavier than gold, and this is 10 times the weight of gold, at least." I thought straight to ballistics. "Yeah, 20 times as heavy as gold. You could replace depleted uranium with this," I say. "Same footprint, much higher momentum. Could an armoured vehicle stand up to this even today?" "Or," the captain answered, still studying the grain, "we do not turn mystery metal into bullets before we know if it poisons groundwater or explodes when you look at it funny." "Oh, I agree," I lied. "I'm just as fascinated with military applications as you are with scientific. But the last thing Earth needs is terrifying new weaponry. We've got our mutual support treaty with the Chinese Juexian mission on Deimos, but I'm not naive enough to believe Earth is peaceful now. Still, weapons tech fascinates me. That had been a mistake." I got excited and let my silent mask slip. I'll get away with it this time, but it's my job not to make mistakes. "I need a breather," the captain announced. "Good. A change of subject. That ghost that grabbed me. The wound wasn't bad, but the touch blasted me with fear magic. I lost 19 resolve points, and they're only very slowly coming back. I felt a compulsion to flee in the fight as well, but it was easily cast aside. What happens if we run out of resolve? Would we be forced to flee or cower? And was that the real trap that was posed by the flame pillars?